Alright, so for today's demonstration, we are going to learn about Azure Active Directory B2C. Azure Active Directory B2C is an exciting features which was recently added to Azure Active Directory. Here in this case, the B2C stand for business to consumer, and it literally allows a developer to use their username and login management to their application with very little effort or coding. The best part about this is this allows us to also include login integration with social identity providers, say Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, and others. So that is what we're going to do today, is to understand how Azure Active Directory B2C works, how we can integrate those social identity providers to that, and how we can have a kind of an MVC application getting integrated to Azure Active Directory B2C. It's going to be a full-scale demonstration of Azure Active Directory B2C from its creation till the point how we integrate it to our application, and then the integration towards the social identity provider. So without further delay, let's dive deep into what exactly we are talking about. Alright, so here we are on the management portal of Windows Azure. So to start with, let's go ahead and create an Active Directory tenant. To create, we'll click on the new, we'll go to the app service and the directory section. We're going to create a new directory. Let's just name it as demo directory. We have to provide that in a domain name, and that domain name should be available across the globe. Now here is the important bit, the country or the region. So if you're aware, Microsoft Azure AD is not only something which works with Azure Tenant or Azure subscription, it's something which works with all the Microsoft cloud products, and that is why if you see the region section, it covers almost entire globe as compared to only few regions where Azure has its presence. So for our demonstration, what we're going to do is to choose United States for our Active Directory, and see at the bottom there is this checkbox which says, is this a B2C directory? If you don't click this checkbox, it's going to create a normal Active Directory tenant for us. We will select that. So that is all which you have to do to create a B2C directory. Let's just go and refresh this page to see if it's already been created. If you come here under the directory section, the demo directory which we are talking about has already been created. If you read the administrator section, manage B2C setting, if you click on that, that will take us to the new portal. But in that new portal, it will not point to the default directory where my subscription lies. Instead, it will take me to the directory tenant which we have created. And in this case, it is this demo directory. It does take few minutes to bring this B2C setting tab. But once everything is settled, you will be able to see all the setting related stuff on what are the things which you can change, but we'll come to this later. But before that, what we're going to do is to set up our identity provider. So if you see on the setting tab, there is this section which is named as identity providers. If you click on that, here it will list all the supported identity providers, especially from the social networking point of view. Let's just go and click on add. If you observe carefully in the identity provider type section, you can see it has its integration with Microsoft accounts, with Google or rather Gmail accounts, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Amazon. So these are the social providers or identity providers which can be designated to handle your authentication and authorization. We're going to work with say Microsoft accounts. So before doing anything, we have to set up the Microsoft account so that it can understand that some application is trying to integrate with that. For example, if you're choosing Facebook, you might log into say developers.facebook.com and create an app and get the tenant out of it. For our purposes, we will select the Microsoft accounts. So let's just go ahead and work with that. So we have to log into apps.dev.microsoft.com. There it will ask me to authenticate, and once I'm done with that, it will list all the applications which has been added to that. So I'm logged into this because I have given my username and password in some other places. Let's go ahead and add an app. This is the first step which you have to do. Let's provide a name for that. We can give it as demo app, and then we'll create this application. Alright, so once you're done with that, it will give you an application ID. This application ID is unique, and that is what you're going to provide when you integrate this with your B2C. Now the next thing which you have to do is to come down and add a platform. So let's come down on the platform section and we'll click on add platform. And we have identified that the application which we're going to test with this is going to be a web application. So we'll select web as a platform, and then it will ask us to provide the redirect URIs. This redirect UI is the one which identifies your tenant, like where it has to go, and that tenant is actually your Azure AD B2C. Let's just put that and see if you read this endpoint carefully. This tenant section has to be replaced with your Active Directory B2C tenant, and that is what we are going to do. So our tenant for this Azure AD B2C is this demo directory 17.onmicrosoft.com. Let's just copy this and paste this in our tenant section. Once we have given that, let's just go and generate a new password for this. We will copy this password. Let's save this and we'll click on OK. Let's click on save, and that should add our application in my app dev environment of Microsoft account. So this account has been enabled for this application. Let's go ahead and add this identity provider in my Azure AD B2C. So we have to come to this Azure AD B2C settings. On the identity provider sections, we can go ahead and click on add. And here we can provide a name. Let's just give it MSA, which is Microsoft Accounts. Let's select the identity provider type. If you're going to work with the Microsoft account, so this is what we will select. Click on OK. Let's provide the other settings which is needed to make this identity work. And here if you see, it warrants us to provide the client ID and client secret. Now client ID is the one which is my application ID, and in the client secret the password which we have created. Let's just copy these things carefully and provide these values to setting tab. Let's copy the password as well. Once you've given all that, click on OK and click create. That should go ahead and add this as my identity provider on this B2C tenant. Now this particular Azure AD B2C tenant has two providers. The default one, which is the AD, which you will get when you create the B2C, and the one which you have added, that is in our case MSA or Microsoft accounts. Now I can offload all my identities to get happen via Microsoft account. So what will happen in that case, that any user who's trying to authenticate his application, they can offload their application authentication bit to Microsoft account. So anybody who's having a proper Microsoft accounts can log into his application because the identity provider for his application has been added. Alright, so before getting into application mode, there are certain things which has to be understood clearly. Azure AD B2C authentication works are driven primarily by the policies. So policies has to be set up in order for application to work with sign up, sign in, or any other things which is needed. Now to work with my application which we are going to test, we do require that application to have a capability of signing up and signing in, and that is what we are going to set up in the policy. So we'll come to the policy section, and then we'll enable certain settings on the sign up, sign in, and profile editing. But before going there, we have to add an application so that that application has to be enabled for this. And let's just provide it a name. Let's just give it as demo app 17. We are going to have a web app or MVC web application, and this is where it wants you to provide the replay URL. Replay URL is nothing but the location on which your application will listen. In our cases, what we're going to use is the local host, and that is what we are going to provide. Let's just provide this name, localhost port number 44316. This is the one where I'll make sure my application should listen, and then we will add this application. Now this application has been integrated. For this particular application, what we are going to do next is to go ahead and set the policies. Note the application ID carefully, because this also is needed when you integrate your web application or the MVC application which you are going to test. Let's copy this carefully. coming back to the policies section, let's set up some policies for sign up. By default, there won't be any policy available. You can click on add and provide the basic settings. Let's just name it as sign up policy. In the identity provider section, you have to provide which identity provider is going to be used to perform this sign up. This local account is the one which is the AD. For time being, let's just select the local account so that we can see if the authentication is working as per our expectation. Let's go to the sign up attributes. Here in this section, you can select what are the things which will appear when you are signing up. Let's just select some random things here and we'll click on OK. On the claim side, this is what will be returned as part of the token. Here also you can select the different values or the combination of these. We are going to select some randoms. So with that, we have created the sign up policies. Now we have to come here on this policy section and add our application which we have created for this policy. Because we have only one application added, it has by default selected that. Let's just go and close this. Now same thing we have to do in sign in policy section as well. Here also by default there won't be any sign in policy available. Let's go and click on add and then we'll provide a name, sign in policy. Under the identity provider, again we are going to select the local accounts and then we'll click on OK. For the claim, same thing you can do. You can select the combination of these things. I'm going to select certain bit so that we can do the demonstration. Let's just click on create. That will create the sign-in policy for me. Alright, let's go to the profile editing policies because the application which we are going to test will have all these three features. Here also, just like other two, we have to perform the similar operation. Let's select the identity providers. Coming to the profile attributes, again similar kind of settings which will appear from that which you can select. Let's go to claim section, select the appropriate claim which we want to view, and then we'll click on create. Now that's all what we need to make this B2C integration works with my application. Now all other settings reside with the application which we are developing. For our purposes, we have identified one application which I have downloaded from internet. You yourself can go and search for Azure AD B2C sample. So this is the application which I have downloaded from internet. If you come at the bottom in the web.config section, this is the place where you will provide all the settings related to this application. So the first thing which you need is the tenant, and tenant is your Azure AD B2C tenant. Let's go and copy that. Let's provide that in my value section. Now client ID is the one wherein I have captured the application ID when I added that application in my B2C. Come here to the application section. This is my application ID which goes as a client ID there. Let's go ahead and paste this as well. Now redirect UI is the one where this is what you have to give when you create that application. And if you remember carefully, the application which I have created, I have given this localhost 44316. The next or important bit which we have to work with is the policies which we have created. We have to carefully copy the name of the policies which we have given. So let's just go ahead and copy all these policies and then we'll provide that name in our web.config section. So we've copied the sign up. We're going to copy the sign in as well. Same operation has to be done for user profile editing. And copy the name of this. So that's all what you have to do to make this application integrated with Azure AD B2C. The place where you can see what code goes and resides there is this startup.auth.cs. This particular sample is going to use OpenID Connect for doing this authentication authorization. Remember, OpenID Connect is a wrapper which works with different protocols. So there, if you see the code carefully, it's trying to capture or get our relevant values from the web.config and passing them in their relevant functions. And once it's done, it just goes and authenticate it and give you back the token. Let's just test it in Internet Explorer. It says that it's not trusting the HTTPS. Let's just click on to continue. Before that, what we can do is let's just test how the look and feel of these sign up or sign in will look like. You can check that on the policies section itself. If you click on the policies which you have created, there in this section it says run now. Now this run now will give you exact look and feel of how your application will look like when you try to sign up. So this is what it will look like for the sign up. Now same thing you can do for sign in as well. Let's just click on run now. Now this is how it will look like when you're trying to sign in. For profile editing, let's do the same operations. Clicking on that, again we have to select the run now button. Let's go ahead to our Internet Explorer or the application which you have created. Let's click on sign in. Now if you see carefully, this is where it's asking me to sign in. Now before signing in, let's come and add a user in this Active Directory tenant which we have created. Let's come to the user section. Let's give it a user. Provide, say, demo user. Give him the role of user because he's not going to do any administration related things. Let's create a password for him. Let's copy his username and password and then we'll click on OK. Now this has added this user which can be used for logging in. Let's provide the username and password which we have created. Upon providing this password, it should first time ask me to change the password because this is the first login. Let's update the password and sign in. Now it should successfully sign into this application. If we want to see the claim what exactly comes out of this, you can sign out. This sign out should take me to the same page where we started. Here again we can check on the sign up tab. This will again take us to the place wherein the policies or sign up policies will take effect. Now in this particular case, if you see carefully, validation or the authentication authorization has been offloaded to Azure AD B2C, but the provider in that is still Azure AD. Now if we want to change the provider there, we have to go there in Azure AD B2C tenant and change that. All the policies whichever we have selected, instead of the default provider, we are going to select the MSA which we have created. To do so, we have to come to individual policies and click on edit button. Here in this, if you see the identity provider section, we have selected this local account. We are going to select the MSA which we have created, and the same operations we are going to do in all other two policies which has its importance in this demonstration. Let's do that for sign in policy as well. Let's click on save. Similarly, we have to perform the same operations for our profile editing policy. So for now onwards, the identity provider for this B2C has been changed from AD to my Microsoft account. So anybody who's having Microsoft account can log into this. And to verify the same, what you can do is you can come to individual policies and see the look and feel of how it's going to look like. So if you come to sign up policies, we have changed the provider. If you click on the run now section, and that is what it will ask you to provide. So it will ask you to first give your consent to accept, and then it will let you sign up. For sign in, again clicking on the run now, this is how it will look like when you sign in. Let's go ahead and close these. Let's come to our application and we will verify it again. Let's run this, and this time when we click on sign in, it should sign in with the provider which we have selected, and in our case now that is Microsoft accounts. Let's click on sign in. So if you see here, it will ask us to provide the username and password of Microsoft account. Let's go ahead and sign in with one of my Microsoft accounts and see how it looks like. But if you observe carefully, the look and feel of how the sign in operation is totally different. Earlier it was AD which was driving that sign in, now it's Microsoft accounts. Let's go ahead and provide a username and password. Once you provide that, it will ask you to give your consent so that it should be able to access certain relevant information from your Microsoft account, which I'm not going to do because that is not what is important. But that is how it actually has to be. Now if you even try to sign up, it will again ask you to give your consent.